Imagine you get the following message from your company's CEO. In lieu of last year's very unique trading results, I'd like to congratulate everyone on an altogether great performance. I'm literally blown away by the figures. Not a great piece of writing, is it? It uses many words incorrectly and, in one case, has an unintended comical effect. Let's look more closely at these errors. First off, the use of literally. To be blown away by something has a figurative meaning, as in to be really impressed. But if you say, I'm literally blown away, well, that means you've been carried away as if by a gust of wind. That's because literally means exactly as described. So clearly, the word shouldn't be used in a figurative sense like this. Then there's in lieu of, which means in place of or instead of, not in light of. It's correct to say, I decided to invest the money in lieu of going on an expensive vacation. But it's incorrect to say, in lieu of the cost of air travel, I decided to invest the money instead. This example should start with in light of. An often misused and incorrect word is irregardless. The correct term to use is regardless, meaning without regard to, without consideration, or without taking into account. For example, you might decide to walk to work regardless of the weather. Next, the word unique, meaning one of a kind. Something can't be very unique or a little unique. It's an absolute term that is not gradable. So while you might be tempted to say the product is totally unique, you should simply say the product is unique. Two other phrases that are often confused are due to and because of. Due to is interchangeable with caused by, as in, the delay was due to icy roads. But when used as an adverb, due to is usually considered inferior to because of, which means on account of. So, for example, you'd write, they started late because of the icy roads. It may help to remember that nouns are usually due to something, whereas verbs happen because of something. And lastly, altogether, which doesn't have the same meaning as its one-word version. Altogether can mean entirely, as in, the manager didn't altogether agree with us. It can mean in total amount. I gave you $400 altogether. Or it can mean considered everything, as in the sentence, altogether, it was an interesting conference. But if you say, the employees assembled all together in the boardroom, it means that the employees are together in the boardroom. The parts are all together in the box is also an appropriate usage of all together. Avoid these and other common usage mistakes by choosing your words carefully. Ask yourself, does that word mean what I think it means? And check that your language usage is precise. When you compare things, do you compare them to each other or with each other? And would you say communication is good between or among team members? In each case, the word that changes is the preposition. One small word with so much power. It can change the relationship between a verb and its object, and hence the meaning of the verb. You can make sure you use the right preposition for your meaning by following a few guidelines. First, the preposition with is usually used when referring to people. For instance, you argue with a person. But you argue over or about a situation or thing. So you might write, the two managers argued with each other over the issue of sick leave. You can also argue for or against a position, as in they argued for the right to vote. You agree with someone, but agree to or on terms, as in the sentence, I agree with you that we need to move forward, but I don't agree to all the terms. You can also agree about something, meaning you concur. You differ with a person, but differ from is applied to a thing or quality. And you differ about, over, or on an issue. One exception to this guideline is the word occupied. For example, a seat is occupied by a person, but you are occupied with a task or thing. Compare is another word that can be followed by different prepositions. You use compare to primarily when highlighting similarities between things or when considering how alike they are. As in, we compared the engine's performance to the benchmark. There's hardly any difference. But you use compare with when focusing on the differences between things. For example, business has been great this year compared with the last 5 years. You also use compare with when you want to discern both the similarities and differences between things. The results were compared with last year's. And when things are different, are they different from, different than, or different to each other? Generally, different from is the correct expression. Different from means the same as it differs from. For instance, the company is different from its competitors is the same as the company differs from its competitors. While different from is usually preferable to different than, sometimes differently than is appropriate, as in he described the product differently than she did. Then there's between and among. Between indicates one-to-one relationships. For example, it's between him and her, and is usually used to compare two things. Among denotes undefined or collective relationships and is used where the emphasis is on distribution rather than individual relationships, as in, we divided the tasks among us. So remember, although they are often little words, prepositions have the power to change the meaning of a verb. Use them carefully to convey your exact meaning.